Today, we're tackling one of the most fascinating and, frankly, one of the most controversial roles in India's entire political structure, the governor. Now, this office was designed to be a stabilizing force, a pillar of the constitution in each state, but so often it ends up right in the middle of a political firestorm.
And that brings us to the fundamental question we're going to explore. Is the governor a neutral, constitutional head of state? Or are they really a political agent, doing the bidding of the central government? This is the tension at the very heart of the office.
So let's start with the basics. On paper, the Constitution is pretty clear. The governor is the chief executive of a state, much like the president is for the whole country. All the state government's actions are officially taken in the governor's name. It's set up to be an independent office, not just another job controlled by the central government.
But, and this is a big but, here's where things get really complicated. The governor has what experts call a dual role, and it's this very duality that causes almost all the friction and controversy we see.
Think of it like this. The governor has to wear two hats at the same time. With one hat on, they're the constitutional head of the state, and they're supposed to act based on what the elected chief minister and their cabinet advises. But with the other hat, they're the eyes and ears of the union government, a vital link to the center. They're appointed by a president and can be removed by the president. You can already see the problem, right? It's a constant balancing act.
Now, what takes this tension and really cranks it up to 11 is a unique feature of the governor's office, their discretionary powers. These are the situations where a governor can legally act on their own without the advice of the elected state government and sometimes even go directly against it.
And these special powers basically fall into two buckets. First, you've got constitutional discretion, powers that are spelled out right there in the Constitution, and second, there's situational discretion, which, pops up when the political situation gets messy and the governor has to make a judgment call.
Let's look at some of those constitutional powers. A governor can decide to hold back a bill passed by the state legislature and send it to the president for approval. They can ask the chief minister for any information they want about how the state is being run. And this is the big one, they can recommend imposing president's rule if they feel the state government has broken down.
Situational powers are all about political crises. So imagine an election results in a hung assembly, with no single party getting a majority. Well, it's the governor who decides who gets the first shot at forming a government. Or, if a government loses a vote of confidence on the assembly floor but stubbornly refuses to resign, the governor has the power to dismiss them. These are massive, high-stakes decisions that rest entirely on one person's judgment.
The Sarkaria Commission, which did a deep dive into center-state relations, had the perfect description for this role. They called the governor the linchpin of the state's constitutional machinery. And that's exactly the idea, a neutral, stabilizing force that holds the whole thing together and makes sure the rules of the Constitution are followed.
But that's the ideal. So, what happens when that crucial linchpin starts looking less like a neutral referee and more like an agent for the political party running the show in New Delhi? This is where everything gets so heated.
Let's just walk through the process for President's Rule using Article 356. It starts with the governor's personal assessment that the state government isn't working properly. Then, using their own discretion, they send a report to the president recommending President's Rule. Based on that report, the union government can then step in and dismiss a democratically elected state government. The key phrase here is, on their own discretion.
It's really no surprise, then, that this power in particular has so often led to accusations of political bias. The charge is that governors use this tool to deliberately destabilize state governments run by opposition parties, acting as a political weapon for the center.
Okay, so this has been a problem for a long time, and it's led to decades of debate about how to fix it. The good news? We actually have a pretty solid blueprint for reform drawn up by some of the sharpest minds in the country.
Back in 1988, the Sarkaria Commission laid out some really common-sense ideas. They said a governor should be a distinguished person from outside the state, someone who hasn't been active in politics lately. They insisted that the state's chief minister has to be consulted before an appointment. And critically, they said the governor's 5-year term should be secure, and that Article 356 should only be used as an absolute last resort, in extreme cases.
Then in 2010, the Punchy Commission built on these ideas and actually went a few steps further. They recommended getting rid of the whole pleasure of the president clause, which makes it so easy to fire a governor. Instead, they propose an impeachment process, led by the state legislature itself. They also suggested putting a 6-month clock on the governor to decide on bills, so they can't just sit on them forever.
When you boil it all down, the central idea behind all these reforms is actually very simple. If you want a governor to be an impartial head of state, you have to insulate them from political pressure. And the only way to do that is to give them a fixed, secure term in office where they don't have to worry about being fired for making an unpopular decision.
So, the point is, the roadmap is there. We're not starting from scratch. These two major commissions have given us a clear, detailed blueprint to take the politics out of the governor's office and bring it back to its original purpose.
Which leaves us right back where we started. The office of the governor was created to be a guardian of the Constitution in every state. The real challenge today is figuring out how to implement these reforms to make sure it stays that guardian instead of being used as a pawn in a larger political game. How we move forward is still very much up for debate.